we have entered into a Living Labs relationship with high schools in Scottsdale, and Claire Musser is going to lead a discussion now about our educational programs in the Conservancy.
Claire, you're muted.
Okay. Claire, you're still muted.
Sorry, the leaf blower is right outside my window. Is that okay?
I can't hear it.
Oh, can you hear? Yeah, okay, the leaf blower has just gone past, so I can make a start. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
All right, so I will begin. So yeah, we've heard today there's some amazing scientific research that's happening at the Conservancy. And often with scientific research, there can be a long delay from the time that the research is conducted to when the research is made available to the public, with most research limited to academic journals and conferences. Publishing peer review and rigorous research does take time, but there is value in translating this research for a wider audience and sharing the research process and the reasons why the research was being conducted in the first place. So as an educator, I've made a career of translating scientific research into memorable and interactive learning experiences for students, from kindergarten through to high school, college, and adults. So with a background in the arts, education, and social sciences, I have seen how bringing science to life can excite learners. So today, I'd like to share how through the Sonoran Education Centre, we're creating engaging educational experiences that are based on our scientific research. So the Sonoran Education Centre is also home to our adult education curriculum and the content development team, which provides support to stewards looking to create educational presentations and experiences for diverse audiences. So I'll start with our youngest audience, the students we teach through our youth education programme. So before I want to begin, I just want to first explain a little bit about what makes our youth education programme so successful. So you may have heard of STEAM education, so that's science, technology, engineering and math, but we take it one step further and we add the arts to make STEAM education. So while scientific research is inherently valuable, sometimes it takes a little extra creativity to engage a middle school student. By incorporating the arts, we can inspire students with very diverse interests and engage them in science and understanding how science can be explored across different subject areas. So this is a useful skill in communicating our message to multiple audiences and generations. So we currently visit classrooms and we take part in community events and we bring students out on field trips to the preserve. And so far, we've engaged over 6,000 students through these hands-on, interactive and inquiry-led collaborative STEAM educational programs. And they also meet AZ academic standards across multiple subject areas. So how do we do this? So we start by establishing our expectations with students. At every grade level, we address our students as scientists. We can then track their scientific journey by thinking about our educational offerings on a spiral. This allows us to map the student progression and when we can intentionally revisit topics throughout the grade levels. As you can see, our scientific research on the right is paired with the student activities shown on the left. So we begin our spiral with our Expedition Days programme that takes place in the classroom and then as a field trip to the preserve. I'll talk a little bit more about these programmes in a moment. And we also have our Bahada Explorers programme where students visit the preserve and collect data. These data collection skills are then developed further during the Living Labs high school programme where students manage their own scientific project. So I won't talk too much about that today because we're lucky enough to have the students here to tell us all about their project. And in the future, we're also looking at paid internships, which will help create career pathways for underserved students and show that careers in science are possible for all. So STEAM education alone, though, is not going to encourage students to care about the Sonoran Desert. We live in a world where many have lost their connection to nature. We have environmental destruction and species extinction happening all around us. So as a social scientist, I just want to draw your attention to E.O. Wilson's biophilia hypothesis. So biophilia is derived from the Greek word and its literal translation is love of life. So as humans, we have an innate love of the natural world. And to reignite this sense of biophilia in students, we need to look beyond teaching only the science and also include fostering emotional connection with both the landscape and the animals that live there. So what research do we focus on? As environmental educators, we're always looking for interesting topics and research that we can translate into programs. We've seen amazing research happening in the preserve, and this has allowed us to find our niche. We can offer programs that are not only unique to the Conservancy, but also bring students closer to understanding their place in the Sonoran Desert. I'll use our 3rd and 4th grade in-person Expedition Days programs as an example. This season alone, we've engaged over 3,000 students with these activities, so this is a really good place to start. The areas we focus on here are biodiversity protection, invasive plant mitigation, and ecological restoration. So we've heard today about the complexity of this research, but there are still ways to simplify these overarching concepts and make them accessible for 3rd and 4th graders. We want students to leave our programs not only with an awareness of the research, but also the reasons behind it. This ultimately gives students a clear call to action, a sense of empowerment, so they can see the small changes are relevant to their lives. So our biodiversity protection work is highlighted in our 3rd grade Hidden Desert and Ecosystem Jenga activities. In Ecosystem Jenga, students are given blocks labelled with animal names so that they can take ownership of a species that lives in the Sonoran Desert. We then talk about the biodiversity of the Sonoran Desert and the connections between species and the food web. As the dice is rolled and the blocks are removed, students see the delicate balance. All along, we're reinforcing the need for biodiversity protection and exploring the role that humans can play in protecting this unique ecosystem. As the Jenga blocks fall, we are modelling how this ecosystem can collapse. And it's here that students share their calls to action and look for ways to protect our environment. We can then look at our camera trapping research to understand how we can find evidence of the different animals, even when we don't always get to see them. The trail camera images are a great way to show how we can view wildlife and learn that we can get to see so much more by passively viewing wildlife. But then how do we know where the animals are going to be? Students also play Scat Bingo to expand their knowledge of the food web and learn how to identify different animals by looking at their scat. Later, they use a ruler and their field guide to figure out which animal is most likely to live in each of the desert holes. But the activity isn't complete unless students get to take home a piece of their scientific research. Each student has the chance to print their choice of animal track and label their drawing with the species, writing their name on their work in the space that says scientist. By the end of these activities, students understand the importance of biodiversity protection, and they tell us how, as 3rd graders, they can protect the ecosystem, with one of the most simple calls to action for them being staying on the trail. So then we continue the theme of biodiversity at 4th grade. We use our trail camera images of bobcats and mountain lions to introduce the theme of human-wildlife conflict and coexistence. Here, students build on what they have learned about biodiversity and start to use more critical thinking skills to understand about the challenges that wildlife face. In Mountain Lion Tetris, students take on the role of 2 mountain lions searching for a new territory. We discuss habitat fragmentation and the need for connected habitats. They've not only to look for resources, so this is food, water, shelter and space, but also avoid traffic, houses, hikers and bikers. Next, they find themselves as a bobcat mother trying to find a way to move her kittens back to the preserve, navigating a busy road, buses and dog walkers. Both these activities ask students to imagine what it's like to be a wild feline living on the fringes of a human-dominated landscape. This activity builds both compassion and empathy for our wild neighbours, and students leave with a better understanding of the challenges that wildlife face and why we need to protect open spaces like the Scottsdale-McDowell Sonoran Preserve. So we also share our work in invasive plant mitigation and ecological restoration. At 4th grade, we focus on problems caused by both buffelgrass and fountain grass. Data collection and graphing may not sound like something a 4th grader would like to do, but when we combine storytelling and kinesthetic learning, students are able to enhance their brain's capacity to retain information. We introduce the activity by taking a closer look at both these species, using scientific observational skills and trying to tell the difference between the buffelgrass and the fountain grass. During the activity, students are given ownership of an Indigenous plant, which enhances their connection to nature. Students then take part in a math activity where they see how buffer grass can outcompete our desert plants, then turning their data into a graph to show the growth. We then learn about the ways that plants have been introduced to a new area and the problems that invasive plants can cause for our indigenous plants. Students then continue their scientific exploration by drawing the buffer grass or the fountain grass and hypothesizing why it can be so easily spread. These drawings are also something they get to take home and share with their friends and family, another great way that we can share our research. We then finish the activities by modelling how buffer grass seeds can disperse. We use large felt seeds to throw at the hiking boots and the dog, understanding how easily it could stick. The students experiment with the amount of seeds they throw at a time, the speed, the direction of the throw, and at what point they all fall to the ground. By the end of this activity, students are able to share their thoughts, and they will tell us that we need to stay on the trail and keep the dogs on a leash. While we encourage students to be observant, we also make sure they're aware of their limitations. They learn that they are still learning. They are scientists in training. Going home and pulling up any plant that could maybe be an invasive species is not an appropriate call for action for a fourth grader. So we also continue the theme by exploring ecological restoration in our watersheds activity. They learn from our scientific research. We show them images of our habitat restoration projects, and they learn that where land is disturbed and degraded, it can't support life. Again, we use scientific modelling where the students draw out their cities and landscapes actually on these plaster mountains, combining science with engineering as they predict where their water will flow. When their drawings are complete, we test their hypothesis. We spray their models with water, looking at how and where the water flows across the model, and to see in which area their cities can survive. Not only do students learn the importance of the preserve and habitat restoration, they also learn about city planning, and they can see the effects of damaged habitats. And like all our activities, it ends with a clear call to action to help keep our environment free of pollutants and learning to conserve water. So we tell students all the time that they can be scientists. So let's make sure we teach them using actual scientific research. Using actual research and data is exciting. It connects them to the real world and is applicable to their lived experiences. And we can see how empowering students allows them to make positive changes towards the conservation of the Sonoran Desert. Let's also prepare students for the future. We need to increase scientific and environmental literacy in all students. By thinking creatively and using the science within STEAM, we allow for student choice. We encourage learners and we help students develop critical thinking skills. And this is the best way to prepare them for careers which may not even exist yet. So I've talked a lot about our youth education programs, but before I close out, I just want to take a moment again to highlight our adult educational curriculum. This curriculum guides the content development team when working with stewards who would like to develop more adult educational content across our programs, from community engagement, guided hike and bike, and of course, citizen science. In adult education, we work on the ideas that everything is connected and always changing. And many of the ideas I've discussed in youth education can be found within our adult education curriculum. So we encourage presenters to explore scientific processes, make connections across domains, and explore relationships between humans and the environment, with each presentation having their own unique call to action. Some of these new presentations have already been presented as part of the Mustang Library series, and I encourage you all to take a look. So we are also working closely with citizen science to translate our research to wider audiences, and we look forward to sharing this content with you over the next season or so. So yeah, that is a little bit about what I have for you today. So I'm